today I would be talking about success mantra for students, and will be considering tips from the traditional knowledge system. Generally, when we talk of success, everyone wants to succeed in life. Everyone has some aims, his personal aims, his aims for family, his aims for society, for nation. But the thing is, how do we achieve these aims? So today I would be covering tips from our traditional knowledge base. We have vast knowledge base starting with the Vedas, and in fact we don't need any foreign management principles to bring about these additions to our life. So the tips today I'll be covering that will be very practical tips, and you would be finding them useful, and you can very easily apply those tips in your life. So first of all, I have been with the student community for over 15 years now, and a lot of students, they approach me with difficulties. These students are sometimes undergraduate students, sometimes postgraduate students, and sometimes PhD students. Usually I find some of the sources of negativity which tend to separate the person from success. So I'm just sharing a list of some of these negative traits: lack of concentration, undesirable habits, and these days digital addiction is a habit which everyone regrets in the end. Then frustration and anger, lack of self-motivation. We are just driven by our peers. Under peer pressure, we choose artificial aims. We don't have knowledge about what is our purpose of life. Then a lot of students, they suffer from the problem of uncertainty, because they are uncertain what they would be after, say, 5 years from now. Then all these, they contribute to either oversleeping or no sleeping at all. So this is also a problem. Then lack of good mentorship. Everyone wants to find a good mentor, but they don't know who to choose mentor, which books to choose mentor. Books are our best mentors, and we should follow books which guide us in the proper path. And then we also need a mentor in the form of a person. So both are very important. Then we should also come out of the habit of spoon feeding, because when we are in the school, then we are very much dependent on parents. But when we come to college and when we have to take our own day-to-day decisions, our parents are not around, then we find in the beginning difficult. So here I will talk of some of the common issues and how we can overcome them. So what is the golden rule for students? According to our traditional knowledge system, the golden rule for students is Kak cheshta bako dhyanam shwan nidra tathavcha alpahari grahatyagi vidyarthi panch lakshanam. Kak cheshta, that is, when we do something, our effort should be like the crow in the story we have heard, that the crow was thirsty. He found a earthen pitcher half filled with water, and he could not dip his beak inside. So what he did, he used stones to raise the level of water so that he could drink the water. So that is, we should have perseverance. Then we should have bako dhyanam. Bako, what is buck? Buck is basically the crane. Crane is very, very alert and very concentrated when trying to catch the fish. So he stands on one leg as if he is meditating, and the moment a fish comes, he grabs. Now it's very important that when the crane is watching for the fishes, he is not after a fish. He is after a big fish, and he lets small fishes go away. So we should also follow same principle, that if we have a higher goal, then small distractions, small enticements we should let go. The next is Shwan Nidra. Shwan Nidra means always alert, like a dog. When dog is sleeping, he is always alert. The moment there is any sound, immediately he starts barking, he starts awake. Then Alpahari. Alpahari does not mean that you have to undernourish yourself. Alpahari only means that we should not exaggerate the sense gratification process. We should be moderate in letting our senses they devour on the sense objects. Then the next is Grahatyagi. Grahatyagi does not mean that one has to leave home. It means that person should be ready to come out of the comfort zone. If you have to achieve something, then you must be ready to come out of your comfort zone. But now there is a new thought and new narrative which projects these golden rules. And you can read, Kak Cheshta has been replaced by Kanya Cheshta. Means you should look for the member of the opposite gender as your partner. Then Luk Dhyanam means looks are something we should always make the best effort on. Kumbhkarn Nidra means we should sleep like a Kumbhkarn and daytime also. Then Junk Food Hari. So students, they like junk food these days. And Dhabavasi. They spend their time in McDonald's or KFC and these kind of places. So these are the rules which are now prevalent, but they only lead to disaster. Now, before we go ahead, we must understand our constitution. We think that we are just this body, but we are not this body. In fact, our structure is just like a machine, just like a car with a driver. Here we have the chariot model of Kathopanishad. This says that just like the 5 horses which are driving the chariot, we have the 5 senses which guide us. So these sensors, they are basically our cameras. They are our sound systems. So all these functions, they help so that the machine of this body, it can stay fit, it can do its work. But then they are controlled by the mind. The mind is the central controller which controls these senses, just like the driver of the chariot, he controls the horses by using the ropes. So the ropes, they are like the mind. And then the driver is analogous to intelligence. So above the mind we have intelligence. Because sometimes our mind gives us temptation. Then we think about whether we should do or not do. So which agency is involved here? Here is the intelligence. And finally, we, the self, we are the passenger. So this is the chariot model. And we can also compare with so many other models. For example, the model of a vehicle driven by someone, driven by you. So basically, how your vehicle or car will perform will depend on how you are maintaining it. Are you using extra premium petrol? Are you doing service in time? So that's how your vehicle will perform. Mileage will be dependent on how well you are maintaining it. And then the third example is organization. In organization we have director or CEO at the top. Then there are managers. Then there are engineers. Then there may be workers. And there may be personal assistants. So there is this kind of hierarchy. So basically, how an organization performs depends on what are its policies dictated from the top. Someone may say that I always do what my mind says. This is akin to saying, for a director, he is saying, I always do what my personal assistant says. So basically, mind is a subordinate being. Mind is also a component. Mind is also an object which has been assigned to our body. Our body is made up of a lot of workers. We have defense system also inside the body. We have the eyes, ears, all the sensors. And then we have the stomach, which is the producer which does the farming or which nourishes different parts of the body. And then we have the complete system. So, but what is our objective? Basically, our objective is to achieve our goals of life, goals for higher life. We are basically the soul. We are the main owners of the body, and we have to utilize all our facilities to achieve higher place so that we are good for us, good for our family, good for society, and good for our own self also. Now here the golden check is control. Am I in control of my situations, or the situations are controlling me? Now you think this question to yourself. If in a given situation, let's say you make some target that you will achieve a certain level of minimum marks in your exams, and you will study for these many hours. Are you able to achieve them? Are you able to? So basically we have to check, are we in control of our situations? Are we in control of our career? Are we in control of our performance? Or is the other way around? Or is the others who are controlling us? Or is the situation which is not letting us perform to our optimum level? So if the answer is no, that means you have to now check your system. You have your own team, and that team needs to be checked. You need to develop or evolve processes, standard operating procedures, so that you can get optimum out of yourself. But how do we do it? Do I need a very strict discipline, or is it a way to do naturally? Now the thing is that if you force something to yourself, you can force it for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, week, or month. But then you cannot sustain it in the long run. Basically, you have to adopt a system and the process such that everything is natural. Everything comes as a part of your natural inclination. You do some work, you don't feel tired. So how do we achieve that? There are certain do's and guidelines provided by our traditional knowledge system. If we try to adopt those policies, just like the director, he has to adopt certain policy for his company. Then based on that, people under him, they perform. Sometimes we hear that a particular organization is very corrupt. You buy something from the organization, you don't get after sales service. Their response is very bad. On the other hand, there is another company, you find they are very, very well in their response. They immediately respond, they immediately check, and they immediately sort out the matter. So basically everything depends on the policies we frame from the top. So we have to make this part of our habit. We have to make it part of our daily ethics. We have to adopt certain do's and don'ts. So we have to adopt something which is favorable, and we have to disregard something which is unfavorable. So if we do this with proper knowledge, we have to get knowledge, we have to know ourselves, how our system works, what is good for us, what is not good for us, then we can be in complete control of ourselves. So everything will work in the auto mode. Then you will be doing some activity and you will start enjoying it. You will not feel tired. So let me give you the example of train journey versus air travel. For example, if you travel by train, you have certain experience. If you travel by, say, air, you have certain experience. The destinations, the beginning point and the end point, they are the same. And fears are also not too much different. But then we see the difference. We see difference in the quality, and we see difference in the attitude, everything. So what is the reason behind this? The reason behind this is the proper training and proper standard operating procedure, and everything is applied with certain objective. So the entire team is trained. We need conviction, we need commitment, we need proper training, we need interdepartmental coordination, systems approach, and most important, a standard operating procedure. We should be very well prepared. If something happens, if certain situation arises, how we have to respond. And what should we do if, for example, in studying you are not getting the desired results. So if we follow these principles which we'll be covering, then you can be happy, you can enjoy your life, and you can be good for everyone. So we have a number of lessons. So lesson number 1 is lead a balanced life. So this is from Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 6, verse number 17. It says yuktahar viharasya yukt cheshtasya karmasu. So Sanskrit is very simple. Yuktahar, ahar means or diet. Vihar means recreation. Yukt means balance. Cheshta means our effort. Karmasu in our work. Yukt Sopnav Bodhasya. Sopnav means or sleeping. Bodhasya means when we are awake. Yogo Bhavati Dukhaha. We can overcome all the miseries. So I just translated. He who is regulated in his habits of eating, sleeping, recreation and work can mitigate all material pains by practicing the yoga system. So first thing is our diet, what we are eating. So according to chapter 17, it says that foods are of 3 kinds. So we just study them one by one. So first of all, the foods are those which are in the mode of goodness. So foods dear to those in the mode of goodness increase the duration of life, purify one's existence, and give strength, health, happiness, and satisfaction. Such foods are juicy, fatty, wholesome, and pleasing to the heart. So the examples of such foods are fruits, vegetables, milk, and other vegetarian dishes. So they are all contributing to our health, all greens. Then we have the foods that are too bitter, too sour, salty, hard, pungent, dry and burning are dear to those in the mode of passion. Such foods cause distress, misery and disease. So these foods like the instant noodles, junk food, they are in this category and they are very detrimental to your health, not just your physical health but also your mental health. And you would definitely lose in your studies if you prescribe to this diet. Then the third type is the foods in the mode of ignorance, that is foods prepared more than 3 hours before eating, food that is tasteless, decomposed and putrid, and food consisting of remnants and untouchable things is dear to those in the mode of darkness. So darkness means we'll see what is meant by the mode of ignorance in the coming slides. So basically these kind of foods, they would lead to inertia, and the foods in this category are all the intoxicants, meat and byproducts and such kind of stuff. So if we refrain from these foods, not only we increase our health, not only we increase our positivity, but at the same time we'll contribute to environment. Now let's see the background philosophy between these 3 divisions, like I showed the division in the food. In general, this kind of division is there in a lot of other spheres also. For example, the mode of goodness is considered as the first class mode. So it is characterized by peacefulness. Person who is in the mode of goodness, he is peaceful, he is relaxed and alert, he has cool temperament and satisfied. Person who is in the mode of passion, he has lot of desires, he has anxiety, he is restless and he is hyperactive. Person who is in the mode of ignorance, he will be lazy. He will try to procrastinate everything, he will sleep more, and he has a high tendency in getting into addictions. So basically these, in scientific terms also we can understand, basically sometimes within the different times of the day we may be in certain particular mode and in other time we may be in certain other mode. Also it depends on what we are eating and what is right now our tendency. For example, it has been found that we have a particular frequency or wavelength of the brain waves, and if we are hyperactive then the frequency is very high. If we are in the sleepy zone, the frequency is very low. So the optimal frequency is something called as alpha zone, and this is what we feel alert but at the same time we are relaxed. So if we are alert but relaxed, then it's possible that if we take any decision, that will be a good decision. Now you may just experience that after a cup of coffee you feel over energetic. That is hyperactivism, that is the hyperactive zone, because caffeine is in the coffee that acts as neurotransmitter and it dilates the blood vessels. So temporarily we may get the feeling that we are very alert, but after 15 minutes, 20 minutes or half an hour it dies down. And similarly, if a person is after intoxication, he goes in the mode of ignorance. So basically we have to develop our habits such that we avoid the modes of ignorance and passion, and we are in the mode of goodness. So basically we find that people have different natures, so their nature is dictated by the dominant mode. So every person has a dominant mode. We have a personality test also. Maybe in the some other lecture we can undertake a personality test. By undertaking the personality test, you will know your own dominant nature. So now we come to the other part, sleeping and recreation. So how much we should sleep, how much we should do recreation. Sleeping should be regulated. In general, 6 hours of sleep is considered to be good. So what time is good? It does not mean that we sleep very late in the night. The ideal time for sleeping is around 10 o'clock. If you sleep 10 o'clock and sleep for 6 hours, you will feel very energetic after you wake up, because this time is considered to be the best. If you are sleeping in the early period, the body will very quickly recapitulate all the vigor. On the other hand, if you are sleeping in the wee hours of the morning, your body will not attain the desired level of recapitulation. And recreation also should be balanced. Nowadays, the main source of recreation, especially after the COVID situation, is that we are all engrossed with our mobiles. So we should restrict that. We should keep fixed hours for mobile activity. Don't do it in irregulated manner. Now lesson number 2 is practice detachment. So Bhagavad Gita says, do thou fight for the sake of fighting, without considering happiness or distress, loss or gain, victory or defeat, and by doing so you shall never incur sin. So this is very important, because sometimes we work very hard, we don't get the desired results. If we get frustrated, if we get depressed, then we just jeopardize our next step. Because if we are cool-headed, then it's very possible that we may very quickly recover the loss and we may think of other avenues. But if we are disturbed in the mind, then the possibility is that we may not be able to take the proper steps. So we should in general stay cool without having too much attachment on the results. So it also says that we have right to perform our prescribed duty, but we don't have say on the fruits of action. So we should never consider ourselves as the cause of results of our activities, and we should never be attached to any kind of negligence in our duty. So we should always do our duty properly, and then we should leave the results to God. Then lesson number 3 is that we should have clarity of goals. So what Gita says is that those who are on this path, they are resolute in purpose and their aim is one. O beloved child of the Kurus, the intelligence of those who are irresolute is many brash. So we should choose our career very carefully. Don't come under peer pressure, and don't go after too many goals. So if you are going for too many goals, then you are wrong. So just think carefully what you should do, what you should not do. So fix your goal, your aim, your career aim, your aim immediate after graduation, your higher aim very carefully. Then you will find you have abundance of time. You will be able to very easily achieve your goals. But if you are just running after too many things, want to appear in IS, also go for MBA, and you want to do this, you want to do that, then that's not preferred. Lesson number 4 is very important. Everyone wants to seek pleasure. So the thing is that we should know what is lower grade pleasure and which is higher grade pleasure. So forego lower grades of pleasure. We'll just see in the coming slides what is lower grade of pleasure and what is higher grade of pleasure. So the thing is that in general we have some addictions, some habits. So it's very difficult to leave those habits. Unless we find something better, a better alternative, we will not be able to do that. About 10 to 15 years ago, I used to drink tea. And I wanted to leave it because I found that it is just a wastage of time. But then I needed something better. So I started drinking juice. Whenever I felt like I should drink tea, I used to go to juice shop and drink juice. So slowly I found better. It's not only healthy, but also I left my addiction of tea. So now we see what is pleasure which is a desired pleasure and the pleasure which is bad pleasure. So it says that first of all we think of third class pleasure, that happiness which is blind to self-realization, which is delusion from beginning to end, which arises from sleep, laziness and illusion, is in the mode of ignorance. So this kind of pleasure is third class pleasure. For example, everyone likes to sleep. So remember, in the early morning it's very cold and the alarm has just sounded, but then we feel cozy inside. We feel pleasure, don't we? So we feel pleasure, but it's a third grade pleasure. And a better example is someone, a drug addict person. He takes drugs, so he also feels pleasure. But a person who is seeing from higher angle, he knows that the person is suffering, but in his own version he may be finding some pleasure. So that is a third grade pleasure. Then we have the second class pleasure. So that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects and which appears to be like nectar first but poison in the end, is said to be the nature of passion. Example is online gaming or similar kind of activities. Once we are into it, we don't know how the time goes round. We start at 8 o'clock and then we'll know that now it's 1 p.m., 2 p.m. in the night. So time goes off like this. And then we sleep and we wake up at 10 o'clock in the morning, we miss the class and then the guilt comes. So it is the second class pleasure that in the beginning we felt, oh, it's so enjoyable. And then the end is that we are just fooled. Then what is the first class pleasure? The first class pleasure is that which in the beginning may be just like a poison, but at the end is just like nectar and which awakens to self-realization. So this is pleasure in the mode of goodness and it's the first class pleasure. Example is you take up a book and you say, okay, half an hour I'll not touch my mobile. I'll read with full concentration. You derive something, you solve each and every equation, and after 1 hour you feel bliss. So this is the first class pleasure. Now lesson number 5 is that we should mind our day-to-day actions, because if we think of ourselves, we are the person inside our body and all the different components of the body, they are basically our subordinates. Then we are basically in an organizational setup. So we should promote those policies which are good for our subordinates or mind or senses, and we should disregard those policies which are detrimental. So action which is regulated and which is performed without attachment, without love or hatred, and without desire for fruitive results is said to be in the mode of goodness. Then we have the second class of action, but action performed with great effort by one seeking to gratify his senses and enacted from a sense of false ego is called action in the mode of passion. So this is something like ugraka. A person is doing night out just one day before the exam. So this is considered as the work which is in the mode of passion. And then what is the worst work? Action performed in illusion, in disregard of scriptural injunctions, and without concern for future bondage or for violence or distress, cause to others is said to be in the mode of ignorance. So in disregard of scriptural injunctions means what are our do's and don'ts as per our organization. For example, we consider ourselves as an organization and you are the boss. All your different senses, your mind, they are your subordinates. So anything which is not in tune with our goal statement, then that leads to bondage. Now lesson number 6 is anger management. Now anger is something, if you are angry, then you lose your efficiency. You lose your cool thinking, you lose your decision making power. So what Gita says that from anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. So first of all, our memory loses. And when the memory is bewildered, then we lose control of our intelligence. And intelligence is something very important for us. And when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the mental pool. But then, what is the root cause of anger? Here this verse tells the root cause of anger, and here the keywords are dhyato vishyan. So it says that while contemplating the objects of senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. That's very natural. You have some unnecessary desire. Desire here means unnecessary desire. For example, you are too much into something. You are too much into a person of the opposite gender, and then you are day, night, each and every hour you are thinking about them, and then in the beginning it will be simply lust, but then after some time you will start feeling frustrated if you are not getting the desired results, and then you will get angry, and the moment you are angry you are depressed, because anger in the end leads to depression. Then what will happen? Your efficiency will go down. Now lesson number 7 is time management. According to Chanakya, time is so valuable that once you lose a particular instant of time, you cannot get back. You may spend a lot of money, any amount of money, you will never get back. Now what is time? Time is basically, according to Gita, time can be made favorable by action only, or karma. In general, Bhagavad Gita talks about many things, and among those are the nature, the karma, and the time. Now time is not in our control. Nature is also not in our control. But our actions or karmas, they are in the control. So we do something that is favorable and we don't do anything which is unfavorable. So think twice before doing anything. So then we can manage time. And I just tell you some of the important rules for time management. When you have certain tasks for the day, make a chart like this. On the left side, vertical column, you write urgent, not urgent, and same thing you do on the top of your page, and list the activities like this. If something is important and urgent, just do it without thinking. If something which is important but not urgent, that means you should do that to your best. So do it slowly and you try to be best in that. Now what should we do if something is urgent but not important? You can delegate it. You can outsource it. And what should we do if something is not urgent, not important? Just bin it. Don't waste your time. So follow this golden chart for your time management and you will find that you have a lot of time. You are able to engage in your hobbies also, and you will be able to perform well in studies also. So basically, work hard versus work smart. Basically, working hard is not just enough. You should have proper knowledge. You should have proper training. If you are trained in something, you will be able to perform it without getting strained, without getting any anxiety. So always think cool and follow a systems approach, gain full knowledge, have some mentors, discuss with them, and adopt favorable, disregard anything unfavorable. So it's also very important that when you follow these principles in the beginning, you may not get the desired results, but what is important is that fault may always be there. You start something in the beginning, you may not be able to do them perfectly, but then you should not lose perseverance. So always there may be, when you do some activity, it may not be perfect 100%. It may be 90% perfect. 10% faults may be there, but try in the next cycle to minimize those 10% also further. So here we have the reference from Bhagavad Gita. So here, don't think that this is a book of religion. Basically, I have presented here Bhagavad Gita as a book of management, as a book of empowerment. So you all can get your copies. Basically, if we have good books and good mentors, then we have achieved 50% of our goals directly. You start in the habit of referring such good books, and then you will find that a lot of your problems, they are solved. We don't need any foreign or any so-called paid book of management, or so many. There are online courses of motivation and so many books. So best is this 5,000 years old simple book of self-management.